The moment I knew my father didn't love me wasn't when he gave the company to my sister. It was 3 months earlier, as I lay in the recovery room after giving him my kidney, and he was already on his phone closing deals. My name is Soleil, and I just turned 35. Until recently, I was the chief operating officer at Hughes Enterprises, our family's pharmaceutical distribution company. The same company I helped build from a regional player into a national powerhouse. The same company that's now being handed to my Instagram influencer sister on a silver platter. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to that hospital room. Daddy, you should be resting, I mumbled through the post-surgery haze. The fluorescent lights made everything too bright, too harsh. Just one quick call, sweetheart, he replied, not even looking up from his screen. Oliver needs my sign-off on the Singapore deal. My mother sat between our beds, methodically applying hand sanitizer. Gilbert, perhaps you should listen to her. The doctors said, "The doctors don't run a multi-million-dollar company," he snapped. "Besides, I feel fine. Soleil's kidney is doing its job perfectly." I smiled weakly, trying to ignore the stabbing pain in my side. That's when my sister Layla breezed in, designer handbag swinging, phone held high. "Okay, everyone look this way. My followers are dying to see this heartwarming family moment." She positioned herself for the perfect angle, her perfectly manicured finger hovering over the record button. "Layla, please," I groaned. "Not now. Don't be such a drama queen, Soul. This is going to get so many views." Family first. Organ donation blessed. Mother adjusted her pearl necklace. "Layla's right, dear. This kind of publicity is good for the company. Shows our values." I closed my eyes, trying to block out the artificial cheerfulness of Layla's voice as she narrated our family's beautiful journey to her followers. She hadn't even visited during the pre-surgery tests, hadn't offered to help with Dad's recovery plan. But here she was, mining our trauma for likes. 3 months later, I stood in front of the mirror in my apartment, examining the fresh scar across my abdomen. The angry red line had faded to pink, a permanent reminder of my sacrifice. My phone buzzed with a message from Mohammed, our company's legal advisor and my closest friend. "You coming to this dinner? Your father's insisting everyone be there." I texted back, "On my way. Any idea what this is about?" "Nothing good. Bring your game face." The restaurant was one of those overpriced steakhouses where deals are made over Wagyu and whiskey. Everyone was already seated when I arrived. Mother in her signature pearls, Layla documenting the breadbasket for her stories, Oliver nervously adjusting his tie, and my father, looking healthier than he had in years, thanks to my kidney. "Finally," Layla chirped, "we can order now." Dad raised his hand, commanding silence like he did in board meetings. "Actually, I have an announcement to make first." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "As you all know, my recent health scare made me think about the future, about legacy." My stomach clenched. Mohammed wouldn't meet my eyes. "It's time to announce my successor at Hughes Enterprises." Dad reached for Layla's hand. "Someone who embodies the modern face of our company. Someone who understands today's market, social media, influence." The room started spinning. This couldn't be happening. "Layla will be taking over as CEO effective next quarter." Champagne bottles popped. Layla squealed, already reaching for her phone. Mother dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Oliver stared intently at his water glass. "But..." The word escaped before I could stop it. "Dad, I've been running operations for 10 years. I increased our market share by 40%. I built the Asian expansion strategy. I gave you my kidney." I wanted to scream. He cut me off with a wave. "Soleil, you're brilliant at operations. Nobody denies that. But leadership requires a certain detachment. You're too emotional, too invested. Business isn't personal." I looked down at my untouched plate. my sister's voice washing over me as she live-streamed her amazing news to her followers. Too emotional. The words echoed in my head as I remembered all the nights I'd stayed late at the office, all the vacations I'd cancelled, all the relationships I'd sacrificed for this company. For him. Mohammed's hand found mine under the table and squeezed. I squeezed back, hard enough to hurt, as Layla's perfectly practiced acceptance speech filled the air. Business isn't personal, I thought, watching my father beam at his chosen heir. Well, Daddy, we'll see about that. I spent the next morning in my office, staring at the business proposal I'd written with my father 5 years ago, the one that had saved the company during the market crash. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages, each one marked with our shared notes, our shared vision. A knock at my door made me jump. "Come in." Mohammed entered, closing the door quietly behind him. "You okay? You haven't answered any of my texts." "Just peachy." I gestured at the box on my desk. "Want to help me pack?" "You're not seriously quitting." Apparently, I don't have the right temperament for leadership. I mimicked my father's condescending tone. Too emotional, you see. "Soleil, did you know?" I cut him off. "About Layla?" He sank into the chair across from me. "I found out yesterday morning. Your father had me draw up the paperwork in secret." "And you didn't warn me?" "I couldn't. He had me sign an NDA." Mohammed leaned forward. "But listen, this doesn't make sense. Layla has 0 experience. The board will do exactly what my father tells them to do." I stood up, pacing. "Just like they did when he wanted to push out his partner 20 years ago. Just like they did when he wanted to bury those safety reports in 19. A sharp knock interrupted us. My mother stood in the doorway, perfectly coiffed as always. "Darling, do you have a moment?" Mohammed took the hint and left, shooting me a concerned look as he closed the door. "What do you want, Mother?" She perched on the edge of a chair, smoothing her skirt. "I wanted to see how you're doing after last night." I laughed bitterly. "How I'm doing? Let's see. I gave Dad my kidney, ran his company while he recovered, and my reward is watching Layla get handed everything I worked for. How do you think I'm doing?" "Don't be dramatic, Soleil. This is about what's best for the company." "Best for the company?" I grabbed my laptop, pulling up Layla's latest Instagram post. "Here's your new CEO, promoting diet tea to teenagers. Really stellar business acumen." Mother's lips tightened. "Layla has qualities you lack. She understands image, presentation. You've always been so intense, so focused on details and numbers instead of relationships." "You mean I actually care about running the business properly?" "See? This is exactly what your father means. You're too emotional, too quick to argue. A true leader needs polish, grace. Like Layla's grace when she skipped Dad's surgery to attend Coachella." Mother stood abruptly. "I won't discuss this if you insist on being difficult. The decision is made. Accept it gracefully, or prove your father right about your unsuitability." After she left, I stormed into my father's office. He was on the phone, but held up one finger, making me wait like a child. Finally, he hung up. "Something on your mind, sweetheart?" "Don't sweetheart me. What's the real reason? And don't give me that emotional bullshit." He sighed, removing his glasses. "Business requires a killer instinct, Soleil. The ability to make hard decisions without letting feelings cloud your judgment. Like the decision to give your unqualified daughter control of a billion-dollar company. Layla understands the modern market. She has influence, connections. She has followers." I slammed my hand on his desk. "She posts about juice cleanses and yoga retreats while I've been keeping this company afloat." "Lower your voice." His tone turned icy. "This display is exactly why you're not ready. Layla will learn the business side. You never learned to control your emotions." I stared at him, really looked at him, at the man wearing my kidney, who couldn't even meet my eyes. "You're right," I said quietly. "I am emotional. I actually care about things, like loyalty, truth, family." "Soleil, no, let me finish. You want killer instinct? Watch and learn." I walked out, straight to my office, and grabbed the proposal from my desk. In the parking garage, I opened the metal trash bin and struck a match. The pages curled and blackened, years of work turning to ash. My phone buzzed. A text from Mohammed. "Don't do anything rash. Come to my office tomorrow. I have an idea." I watched the last page burn, remembering how proud my father had been when we finished it. How he'd hugged me and said, "This is our legacy." Another text came through, this time from Layla. "Daddy says you're upset. Don't worry. You can help me learn the ropes. Maybe run my social media? You're good with details." I took a picture of the ashes and sent it to Mohammed with one word. Tomorrow. They wanted killer instinct? I'd show them exactly how cold-blooded I could be. But first, I needed a plan. Mohammed's office was a fortress of legal files and coffee cups. He closed the door, checked it twice, then pulled down the blinds. "Before we start," he said, lowering his voice, "I need to know how far you're willing to go." I settled into his leather chair. "How far do we need to go?" He opened his laptop, turning it toward me. "I've been tracking some irregularities in our financial reports. Small discrepancies at first, but they add up." His fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up spreadsheets. "Look at these offshore transfers." I leaned forward, scanning the numbers. "These are all authorized by Oliver? With your father's digital signature. But here's where it gets interesting." He clicked another tab. "They all trace back to accounts owned by someone named Rodney Palmer." "Never heard of him." "Exactly. He's not on any official documents, but his name keeps popping up in encrypted emails. I think he's a silent partner." A knock made us both jump. Mohammed slammed his laptop shut as Oliver walked in, his usual nervous energy amplified. "Sorry to interrupt," Oliver said, eyes darting between us. "Soleil, your sister's looking for you. Something about promotional photos? Tell her I'm busy." Oliver lingered. "Also, your father wanted me to remind you about the confidentiality agreements you signed last year." I smiled sweetly. "Thanks for your concern, Oliver. How's the Singapore audit coming along?" He paled slightly. "Fine. Everything's fine." He backed out, closing the door too quickly. "He's scared," Mohammed observed. "Good." I reopened the laptop. "Show me everything." For the next 3 hours, we dug through digital breadcrumbs, suspicious wire transfers, doctored audit reports, email threads with coded language about special arrangements and legacy planning. "Your father's careful," Mohammed said, rubbing his eyes. "Nothing explicitly illegal, but enough smoke to suggest a fire." I took a sip of cold coffee. "We need more." "I can request internal audits, but they'll notice." "No." I pulled out my phone, scrolling through contacts. "I know someone better. Remember Phoebe from law school? The one who became a journalist? She specializes in corporate corruption now, works independently." I started typing a message. "She owes me a favor." Mohammed grabbed my wrist. "Soleil, think about this. If we involve the press, they destroyed my career. Why should I protect theirs?" My phone chimed. Phoebe's response. "Interesting? Coffee tomorrow?" As I left Mohammed's office, I heard voices from the conference room. Layla's distinctive laugh carried through the door, which was slightly ajar. "The transition will be smooth," my father was saying. "Soleil won't cause problems." "She better not," an unfamiliar male voice responded. "We've invested too much to let emotional family drama derail the plan." I pressed against the wall, holding my breath. "Trust me, Rodney," my father replied. she'll accept her new role or find herself unemployable in this industry. Rodney Palmer, the silent partner. I pulled out my phone and started recording. And the legacy plan? Rodney asked. On schedule. Once the public offering is announced, we'll begin phase 2. By then, Layla will be the perfect figurehead. Young, charismatic, easily managed. And completely disposable, Rodney added with a chuckle. My hand shook as I stopped the recording. Even Layla was just a pawn in their game. Back in my office, I found a folder on my desk marked Transition Documents. Inside was a contract effectively demoting me to an advisory role, with a hefty non-disclosure agreement attached. I scanned the signature page, noting my father's familiar scrawl at the bottom. Something about it caught my eye. I pulled up old contracts on my computer, comparing signatures. They were identical, pixel-perfect identical. Looking for something? I jumped. Oliver stood in my doorway, his forced smile not reaching his eyes. Just reviewing the paperwork, I said, matching his fake smile. Everything looks in order. He nodded slowly. Good. Your father wants all transitions completed by next week. And Soleil. He paused. Be careful with old files. Some things are better left in the past. After he left, I opened my encrypted email and sent everything I had to my personal account. As I was logging out, a notification popped up. Legacy Plan PDF requires administrative access. I clicked it. A password prompt appeared. On a hunch, I typed, Rodney Palmer. Access granted. The file opened, revealing a detailed timeline. Public offering, corporate restructuring, asset liquidation. And there, in cold corporate language, was the truth. They planned to dissolve the company entirely, leaving shareholders and Layla with nothing. My phone buzzed. A text from Phoebe. Found something interesting about your father's friend Rodney. Meeting still on for tomorrow? I looked at the legacy plan, then at the family photo on my desk. Time to show them what real killer instinct looks like. Tomorrow, I replied, and bring everything you have. The press conference was a masterclass in corporate theatre. Layla stood at the podium, perfectly styled in a designer suit, delivering rehearsed lines about family legacy and innovative leadership, while our father beamed proudly beside her. I watched from the back, playing my new role perfectly, the supportive sister, gracefully accepting her demotion. My phone buzzed silently in my pocket, Phoebe requesting another meeting. And of course, Layla was saying, I couldn't do this without my amazing sister, Soleil, who's been such a mentor to me. The reporters turned, cameras finding me. I smiled, waved, died a little inside. How do you feel about the transition? Someone called out. I'm thrilled, I lied smoothly. Layla brings a fresh perspective that the company needs. Later, in a quiet coffee shop across town, Phoebe spread documents across our table. Your friend Rodney has quite a history, she said, sliding over a mugshot. Securities fraud in 2010, charges mysteriously dropped, money laundering investigation in 2015, evidence disappeared. And now he's my father's secret partner. More than that. She pulled out more papers. I found shell companies linking him to 3 other pharmaceutical distributors that mysteriously went bankrupt after public offerings. Classic pump and dump scheme. My coffee went cold as she laid out the pattern. Build up company value, take it public, then strip it for parts, while small investors lose everything. The question is, Phoebe said, what's your angle here? Revenge? Justice? Protection? All of the above. I showed her the legacy plan. They're planning to destroy everything I built, and they're using my sister as a puppet. Speaking of your sister, Phoebe pulled up Instagram on her phone. She's doing a remarkable job selling the story. Layla's latest post showed her in the CEO's office, my former office, captioned, "Dreams do come true. Girl boss. Family business. Blessed." "She has no idea she's being used," I said. "Will you warn her?" I thought about all the times Layla had thrown me under the bus, all the family dinners where she'd subtly undermined me. She made her choice. My phone chimed. A message from an unknown number. "We know what you did. Back off now." I showed it to Phoebe. She whistled low. "They're scared." Good. Back at the office, I played my part. I attended meetings, smiled at the right moments, acted appropriately subdued. Meanwhile, Phoebe's team dug deeper, following money trails and connecting dots. "Your father's hosting a board meeting next week," Mohammed told me during our daily covert meeting in the parking garage, presenting the public offering timeline. Perfect. I handed him a USB drive. "Plant this in Oliver's computer. It'll give us access to his encrypted files." "Soleil." He hesitated. "Are you sure about this?" "Once we start, there's no going back." Another text arrived. "Final warning. We have proof." "They're bluffing," I said, but my hands shook slightly. What proof could they have? Maybe about the kidney donation? Medical records? I laughed bitterly. "Let them try. That'll play great in the press. They took my kidney, then took my job." The next day, I arrived early to find my office door ajar. Inside, someone had gone through my files. Amateur move. I kept nothing important there anymore. Layla breezed in around noon, a camera crew in tow. "Soleil, we're doing a piece about female leadership in business. Want to say a few words about passing the torch?" I smiled for the cameras. "Of course. Family is everything." That evening, as I was leaving, Oliver cornered me by the elevators. "Your father wants to see the Q3 projections you were working on." "Of course." I pulled up the sanitized version on my phone. "Here you go." He studied me for a moment. "You're taking this all very well. What choice do I have?" "There's always a choice." He glanced around nervously. "Sometimes the smart choice is knowing when to walk away." Was that a threat or a warning? Before I could decide, the elevator arrived, and he hurried away. At home, I encrypted another batch of files for Phoebe. Evidence of tax evasion, falsified safety reports, offshore accounts, a paper trail leading straight to my father and Rodney. My phone lit up with a new Instagram notification. Layla had posted a throwback photo of us as kids, caption reading, "So blessed to have a sister who's always supported my dreams. Wash a sister love. Family first." I clicked through to her stories. She was announcing a company-wide celebration gala next month. "Time to unveil our exciting new direction," she chirped to the camera. Perfect timing. I texted Phoebe. "We moved during the gala. Maximum impact." Her response came quickly. "You sure? This will destroy them." I looked at my kidney surgery scar in the mirror, then at Layla's smiling face on Instagram. They wanted a killer instinct? They were about to get it. "I'm sure," I replied. "Time to show them what emotional really looks like." The first sign that they were onto me came in the form of an urgent email from HR about expense irregularities. They'd found suspicious charges on my corporate card, charges I knew I hadn't made. "Someone's trying to frame you," Mohammed said, reviewing the receipts in his office. "Look at these dates. You were in the hospital donating your kidney when these charges were made. They're getting sloppy." I forwarded the evidence to my private email. "But why now?" My answer came during the afternoon board meeting. I sat in my usual spot, now relegated to the far end of the table, while Layla commanded the head chair. "Before we discuss the public offering," my father announced, "we need to address some concerns about unauthorized access to sensitive files." Oliver's presentation clicked to a screen showing login attempts to the company servers. My login attempts. I felt all eyes turn to me. Time to put on the performance of my life. My voice cracked perfectly. I was just trying to help Layla understand the systems better. By accessing encrypted personnel files, Oliver asked. I let tears well up. I'm sorry. I've been so emotional lately. Ever since the surgery, since losing my position. I buried my face in my hands, shoulders shaking. Oh, Soleil. Layla sighed dramatically. You should have just asked me. I would have given you access to whatever you needed. Perhaps, my father said slowly, you should take some time off. Clear your head. No! I looked up, letting mascara run down my cheeks. Please, I'll do better. I just want to help. Mohammed caught my eye across the table, hiding a smile. They were buying it completely. After the meeting, I met with a SEC investigator in a quiet coffee shop 2 towns over. The evidence is compelling, she said, reviewing my files. But we need more concrete proof of the offshore accounts. Give me 2 weeks, I promised. The gala will be the perfect opportunity. Everyone will be there, including Rodney Palmer. That name made her sit up straighter. Palmer? We've been trying to nail him for years. Back at the office, I found my father waiting in my new, much smaller workspace. Soleil, he said gently, I'm worried about you. These emotional outbursts, the unauthorized access. I know, Daddy, I'm sorry. I wiped at fresh tears. I just miss how things used to be. He patted my hand awkwardly. Take the rest of the day off. Get some rest. Instead, I went to the records room in the basement. The security guard, who still remembered me as COO, let me in without question. Within minutes, I found what I needed. Old partnership agreements with Rodney's signature. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, with an attachment. My blood ran cold as I opened it. It was a photo of me meeting with the SEC investigator. Another text followed. Last chance. Walk away, or everyone learns what really happened the night before your kidney surgery. My hands shook as I dialed Mohammed. They're bluffing, he assured me. There's nothing to find. But there was. The night before the surgery, desperate and angry, I'd accessed my father's private medical records. I'd discovered something that could have stopped the transplant. A genetic marker that made him high risk for rejection. I gave him my kidney anyway. If this gets out, I whispered, they could claim I endangered his life deliberately. Then we move faster. Mohammed's voice hardened. I found something in Oliver's encrypted files. Proof that Rodney's been embezzling money through fake charities. Your father's been helping him launder it. I straightened my spine. Send everything to Phoebe, and I need you to do one more thing. Anything. Plant an email thread between Layla and Rodney. Make it look like she's been knowingly helping them hide the money. Soleil, he hesitated. That's crossing a line. They crossed it first. I looked at the threatening text again. Besides, we're not fabricating the crime, just redirecting the blame. Layla wanted to play CEO? Let her learn about responsibility. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the gala invitation. 2 weeks until everything exploded. 2 weeks until I destroyed my entire family. My phone lit up with Layla's latest Instagram post, a video of her practicing her gala speech, promising exciting changes and a new era of transparency. I opened my laptop and began typing, Dear Ms. Tucker, I'm writing to offer you an exclusive story about corporate fraud, family betrayal, and the true cost of loyalty. It begins with a kidney donation and ends with the collapse of a pharmaceutical empire. The reply came within minutes. Tell me everything. I smiled, thinking of my father's words. Business requires a killer instinct. Well, Daddy, watch me become the killer you always wanted me to be. The gala sparkled with fake smiles and champagne bubbles. I adjusted my emerald dress, the same shade as Layla's eyes, a deliberate choice, and checked my phone. 20 minutes until everything exploded. "You look tense," Mohammed murmured, appearing at my elbow with a fresh glass of champagne. "Everything's in place." I nodded slightly, watching Layla work the room in her white designer gown. She was doing Instagram lives with major shareholders, promising revolutionary changes and unprecedented growth. "Phoebe's team is ready," I whispered. "The story drops in 18 minutes. My father stood near the stage, deep in conversation with Rodney Palmer. I'd never seen him in person before. Tall, silver-haired, expensive suit. The kind of man who looked respectable until you knew what to look for. "Soleil!" My mother's voice cut through my thoughts. "Stop hovering in corners. Come congratulate your sister properly." I plastered on my best supportive smile and approached the small crowd surrounding Layla. She was mid-speech, phone held high to capture every moment. "And of course, none of this would be possible without my amazing family," she was saying. "Especially my sister, who's been so gracious during this transition." "So gracious," I echoed, raising my glass. My phone buzzed in my clutch. 15 minutes. Oliver appeared suddenly, looking pale. "Mr. Hughes, could I have a word? Privately?" My father waved him off. "Not now, Oliver. Layla's about to make her speech." "But sir, there's something—" "I said not now." The lights dimmed. Layla took the stage, radiant under the spotlight. Behind her, a massive screen displayed the company logo. "Distinguished guests," she began. "Tonight marks the beginning of a new era." My phone. 12 minutes. An era of innovation, expansion, and most importantly, family values. 10 minutes. Proud to announce our upcoming public offering. 7 minutes. I caught Mohammed's eye across the room. He nodded slightly, pulling out his own phone. Oliver was frantically typing on his, sweat visible on his forehead. "And now, I'd like to share our vision for the future." The screen behind Layla flickered. She continued speaking, oblivious, as the company logo was replaced by an audio waveform. My father's voice filled the ballroom. "Once the public offering closes, we liquidate everything. The shareholders, the board, even Layla. They'll never know what hit them." Rodney's voice followed. "What about Soleil? She's been asking questions." "My emotional daughter?" My father's recorded laugh was cold. "She gave me her kidney. She'll give me the company too." The room erupted in whispers. Layla stood frozen mid-gesture, her perfect smile cracking. My father lunged for the AV controls, but it was too late. The screen switched to documentation, offshore accounts, fraudulent transfers, emails about the legacy plan. Phones started chiming throughout the room. The story was breaking nationally. "Ladies and gentlemen," I stood, my voice carrying in the chaos. "You might want to check the business news. I believe Hughes Enterprises is trending." "What have you done?" My father's face was purple with rage. "Business isn't personal, remember?" I smiled, pulling up Phoebe's article on my phone. "I'm just showing the killer instinct you always wanted from me." Layla stumbled off the stage. "Daddy, what's happening?" "What's happening?" Rodney snarled, pushing through the crowd. "Is your sister just destroyed everything?" "Oh, no," I corrected him. "You did that yourselves. I just exposed it." I turned to the shocked shareholders. "You might want to call your lawyers. The SEC will have questions about those charitable donations you've been writing off." Security guards were entering the ballroom, not company security, federal agents. "Soleil, please." My mother grabbed my arm. "Think about what you're doing to this family." "Family?" I yanked free. "You mean the family that took my kidney, my career, And my dignity? That family? The agents were approaching Rodney, who was backing toward the exit. My father stood stone still, watching his empire crumble in real time. You said I was too emotional, I told him, as phones continued chiming with breaking news alerts. Too invested. Well, you were right. I am emotional. I'm furious. Layla was crying, mascara running down her face. I didn't know, she kept saying. I swear I didn't know. Check your email, I told her coldly. Those messages between you and Rodney suggest otherwise. Mohammed appeared at my side as the agents began reading rights and making arrests. Ready to go? I looked around the ballroom one last time. At my father being handcuffed, my mother collapsed in a chair, Layla trying desperately to live-stream her innocence to her followers. Almost, I said, raising my voice. Just one last thing. The board meeting is tomorrow at 9. As the only executive not implicated in fraud, I'll be chairing it. I smiled at the shareholders. We have some changes to discuss. The lights flickered again, and in the momentary darkness, I finally let myself feel the weight of what I'd done. When they came back on, I was already walking away, head high, leaving chaos in my wake. The morning after the gala, I walked into the boardroom wearing my sharpest suit. The same boardroom where, months ago, I'd sat quietly while my father gave away my life's work. Now, every chair was filled with shell-shocked faces, board members, major shareholders, legal teams. Phoebe's exposé was running on every financial news channel. The headline scrolled continuously. Hughes Enterprises scandal. Daughter exposes family's fraud. Before we begin, I announced, taking my father's old seat, I suggest everyone check their phones. My exclusive interview just dropped. The room filled with notification chimes and sharp intakes of breath as they read the title, Why I Gave My Father a Kidney, Then Took Everything Back. You can't do this, one board member protested. There are procedures. Actually, Mohammed interrupted, distributing documents. As per company bylaws, Ms. Hughes retains executive signing authority on major decisions, an oversight your CEO never corrected. I smiled, remembering my father's carelessness. He'd been so focused on the public image of Layla's succession, he'd forgotten about the actual paperwork. Now, I continued, let's discuss the federal investigation. The next hour was chaos. Subpoenas were being served across the company. Oliver had already agreed to testify in exchange for immunity. Rodney's overseas accounts were frozen. My phone buzzed. A call from the county jail. My father. I put it on speaker. Hello, Daddy. Whatever you want. His voice was hoarse, desperate. Name it. The company's yours. Just drop the charges. It's not that simple anymore. I looked around the room. You're on speaker with the board. You ungrateful. He caught himself. I gave you everything. I taught you business. No, I corrected him. You taught me revenge. Remember? Business requires a killer instinct. The call ended abruptly. Minutes later, my mother's name flashed on my screen. I declined it. A commotion outside drew everyone's attention. Layla was trying to push past security, still wearing last night's gown, makeup smeared. Let her in, I instructed. She stumbled into the room clutching her phone. They're saying I knew. They're saying I helped hide the money. Didn't you? I pulled up the email thread. These messages are fake. She was crying now. You know they're fake. You framed me. The room went silent. All eyes turned to me. Prove it, I said softly. She stared at me, realization dawning. You planned this, all of it. The kidney, the demotion, everything. You were plotting this whole time? Not the whole time. I stood, walking around the table. The kidney was real. The loyalty was real. Until it wasn't. Ms. Hughes, a shareholder spoke up. What exactly are you planning to do with the company? Before I could answer, The doors burst open again. Federal agents, more of them. Soleil Hughes? One stepped forward. We need to ask you some questions about the night before your kidney donation. We have evidence you accessed private medical records. Mohammed was already on his feet, lawyer mode engaged. My client has nothing to say without... It's okay. I held up a hand. I'll talk to them, but first... I turned to the board. There's something you all need to see. I pulled up the legacy plan on the screen. This was my father's endgame. Take the company public, strip its assets, leave you all holding worthless shares. I have proof. The room erupted again. Legal teams huddled. Shareholders made frantic calls. Ms. Hughes, the agent pressed, about those medical records. Yes, I accessed them. My voice carried over the chaos. I found out my father was high risk for rejection, and I donated anyway. I turned to Layla. Because that's what family does, or should do. She sank into a chair, all fight gone. What happens now? Now! I looked around the room, at the empire I'd just burned down. Now we rebuild, properly this time. The next few hours were a blur of statements, signatures, and legal discussions. By sunset, the headlines had shifted. Hughes Enterprises under new management. Whistleblower daughter takes control. As the room finally emptied, Mohammed touched my arm. You okay? I looked at my phone, missed calls from my mother, my father's lawyer, Layla's publicist. A text from Phoebe. Stories going viral. You're trending. I don't know, I answered honestly. Ask me tomorrow. He nodded toward the agents waiting outside. What will you tell them about the medical records? I gathered my things, straightened my jacket. The truth. All of it. Isn't that what this was about? But as I walked toward the agents, I wondered, was it really about truth? Or had I just proven my father right about that killer instinct after all? Either way, I thought, watching Layla leave in tears, there was no going back now. The damage was done. The only question was, what would rise from the ashes? The federal investigation took less time than expected. My father pleaded guilty to reduced charges, accepting a 5-year sentence. Rodney fled to a non-extradition country. Oliver turned state's evidence, and my mother retreated to her sister's house in Maine. I sat in my old office, my office again now, reviewing the dissolution papers. Not for the company, but for its old structure. Hughes Enterprises would be reborn as something new. The board approved your proposal, Mohammed said, entering with coffee. Though some of them think you're crazy. Probably. I signed the last page. How's the press taking it? See for yourself. He handed me his tablet, open to a financial news site. CEO whistleblower announces radical company restructure. Employee ownership model to replace family dynasty. A knock at the door made us both look up. Layla stood there, looking smaller somehow without her designer clothes and perfect makeup. Can we talk? Mohammed squeezed my shoulder as he left, closing the door behind him. Nice outfit, I said, noting her simple black dress. My assets are frozen. She sat down heavily. The investigators cleared me of criminal charges, but everything's gone. My followers, my sponsors, my reputation. I know. I pushed a folder across the desk. That's why I brought you these. She opened it, frowning. What is this? Your new contract. Entry-level position in marketing. You'll start at the bottom, learn the business properly this time. Why? Her voice cracked. After everything, because you're my sister, and because you're actually good at what you do, when you do it honestly. She stared at the contract for a long moment. Dad's lawyer called. He wants to appeal, wants me to testify. Don't. I leaned forward. Choose your own path this time. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Someone had leaked my father's prison intake photo. He looked old, defeated. Did you visit him? Layla asked quietly. Once. I touched my side where the surgery scar lay. He asked if I regretted giving him my kidney. I told him no. It taught me everything I needed to know about loyalty. She picked up the pen, hesitated. The company? What you're doing? Will it work? Converting to employee ownership? Splitting profits among workers? Transparency in all operations? I shrugged. We'll find out. The intercom buzzed. Ms. Hughes, the hospital board is here for your meeting. Send them in. I stood, gathering papers. Stay if you want. See what real leadership looks like. 5 hospital administrators filed in, led by Dr. Sarah Martinez, head of nephrology. Thank you for coming, I began. Let's discuss the kidney donation program. Dr. Martinez smiled. Your proposal to fund transplant surgeries for uninsured patients is unprecedented. Along with research grants, I added. Funded by company profits, managed transparently. Why this focus? One administrator asked. I caught Layla's eye. She was watching intently, perhaps really seeing me for the first time. Because some gifts should come without strings, I answered. Without expectations, without price tags. The meeting lasted an hour. When it ended, Layla was still there, contract signed. I'll need an office, she said. You'll need a cubicle, I corrected. Ground floor, marketing department. Report to Jessica tomorrow at 9. She nodded, turned to leave, then stopped. That email thread, the one that implicated me, you planted it, didn't you? Yes. Why? Because you needed to understand consequences. Real ones, not Instagram apologies. She absorbed this, then asked, Will you ever trust me again? That's up to you. I handed her an employee handbook. Start with this. After she left, Mohammed returned. The press release about the hospital program is ready, and Phoebe wants another exclusive. Tell her yes. I walked to the window, looking out at the city. But first, I need to make a stop. The hospital waiting room was quiet when I arrived. A young woman sat crying while her mother held her hand. I overheard fragments. Kidney failure, transplant list, years of waiting. For a moment, I was back in that same room, offering my kidney to my father, believing love meant sacrifice at any cost. I left without speaking to them, but the next day, their hospital received anonymous funding for the transplant program. No strings attached, no expectations, no price tags. That evening, I sat in my office, reading comments on Phoebe's latest article. One stood out. They said she was too emotional to lead. Turns out, she was just human enough to change everything. I touched my scar again, feeling its raised edge through my silk shirt. They'd wanted a killer instinct, but I'd chosen something stronger, the power to rebuild, to transform, to heal. My phone lit up with a text from Layla. First day done. It's harder than it looks. I smiled, typing back. It always was. That's what makes it worth doing.
The Anderson family dinner table had always been a battlefield of financial debates, but that night in 2013 was different. That was the night I told them I was selling my car to buy Bitcoin. You're doing what? Michael, my older brother, nearly choked on his wine. As the youngest vice president in Morgan Stanley's history, he considered himself the family's financial expert. Bitcoin, I repeated, maintaining eye contact. It's trading at $100 right now. I think it could hit $1,000 by year's end. Alex, sweetheart, my mother intervened, using her talking to a child voice despite me being 25. Maybe you should listen to your brother. He knows about these things. Michael leaned back in his chair, swirling his expensive wine with the smug confidence of someone who thought he knew everything about money. Bitcoin is a scam, plain and simple. No institutional investor would touch it. It's magic internet money for gamblers and criminals. Our father, a retired investment banker himself, nodded in agreement. Son, if you want to invest, I can introduce you to some real opportunities. Proper stocks, bonds, reliable things. I looked around the table at my family, all of them so certain, so convinced of their traditional financial wisdom. Even my sister Sarah, who usually stayed out of these discussions, was shaking her head disapprovingly. I'm not asking for permission, I said quietly. I'm telling you what I'm doing. With your own money, fine, Michael scoffed. But don't come crying to us when you lose it all. The next day, I sold my BMW for $45,000 and put every cent into Bitcoin. My family thought I was insane. Michael made sure to remind me at every opportunity how reckless and naive I was being. But I wasn't just buying Bitcoin. I was studying blockchain technology, learning about cryptocurrency trading, and developing what would become next-gen crypto exchange. While my family saw only magic internet money, I saw the future of finance. Working from my small apartment, I spent 18 hours a day coding, learning, building. My first version of the exchange was crude, but it worked. I launched it just as Bitcoin hit $1,000, exactly as I predicted. Michael's response? A lucky guess. It's a bubble that'll burst any day now. By early 2014, my exchange was handling $100,000 in daily transactions. Small by traditional standards, but growing. I added more cryptocurrencies, improved the interface, enhanced security. Then came the call that changed everything. Alex. David Chen's voice crackled through my phone. I heard about your exchange from some friends in Silicon Valley. We should talk. David Chen, the legendary tech investor who'd backed some of the biggest names in Silicon Valley. He wanted to meet me. The meeting was set for the same day as our monthly family dinner. I showed up late, still buzzing from my conversation with David. Sorry I'm late, I said, sliding into my usual seat. Had an important meeting. Oh? My mother perked up. A job interview? You know, Michael could put in a word at the bank. Not exactly, I smiled. A venture capitalist wants to invest in my exchange. $5 million for a 10% stake. The silence that followed was deafening. Michael broke it with a laugh. $5 million? For your little Bitcoin website? Alex, come on. No serious investor would. David Chen. I cut him off. You know, the guy who backed PayPal and Stripe? That David Chen. For the first time in my life, I saw my brother speechless. That's impossible. He finally managed. David Chen doesn't invest in cryptocurrency. He does now. I pulled out my phone and showed them the signed term sheet. The deal closes next week. My exchange is now valued at $50 million. My father leaned forward, suddenly interested. Son, perhaps we should discuss this. I have some experience with venture capital deals. No need, I interrupted. The lawyers have already reviewed everything. I'm not here to ask for advice. I just thought you should know that your son's magic internet money scam is now worth more than your entire investment portfolio, Dad. The look on their faces, the slow realization that maybe, just maybe, they'd been wrong, was priceless. But it was nothing compared to what was coming. Because what they didn't know was that the David Chen deal was just the beginning. My exchange wasn't just another cryptocurrency platform. It was about to revolutionize how digital assets were traded. And my family, with all their traditional financial wisdom, had no idea what was about to hit them. I left dinner early that night, ignoring Michael's suddenly friendly attempts to discuss potential synergies between my exchange and his bank. In my car, I checked my phone. Bitcoin had just crossed $1,200. My initial $45,000 investment was now worth over $500,000. But more importantly, my exchange was processing over $1 million in daily transactions. Back in my apartment, still the same modest place I'd lived in for years, despite my growing wealth, I opened my laptop and stared at the code for our newest feature. Something that would change everything: institutional-grade trading tools for cryptocurrency. Michael and his banking friends thought crypto was just for retail investors and criminals. They were about to learn how wrong they were. My phone buzzed. A message from David. "Alex, the board loved your presentation. We're ready to fast-track the expansion. How soon can you launch the institutional platform?" I smiled, thinking about Michael's dismissive comments about magic internet money. 3 months, I typed back, just in time for the next family dinner. As I worked through the night, my mind wandered back to all the family dinners where I'd been lectured about real investing. All the times Michael had talked down to me about financial markets. All the times my father had tried to push me toward a proper banking career. They thought they knew everything about money, but they were about to learn that the future of finance wouldn't be found in their mahogany-paneled boardrooms or traditional trading floors. The future was being built in apartments like mine, by people they dismissed as dreamers and fools. And I was just getting started. 3 months passed in a blur of code, meetings, and sleepless nights. Next-gen crypto exchange wasn't just growing, it was exploding. Our daily trading volume had hit $100 million, and that was before launching the institutional platform. The morning of the next family dinner, I sat in my new office on the 50th floor of a downtown skyscraper, reviewing our latest numbers. Bitcoin had just crossed $5,000, making my initial investment worth over $2 million. But that was pocket change compared to what the exchange was now worth. "Mr. Anderson?" My assistant Emma poked her head in. "Morgan Stanley is on line 3. Again." I smiled, knowing exactly who was calling. "Let me guess. My brother?" "Yes, sir. He's called 4 times this morning. Keep taking messages." I turned back to my screens, watching the trading volume tick up. Michael could wait. He'd been trying to get a meeting for weeks, ever since rumors about our institutional platform started circulating on Wall Street. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, my sister. "Mom wants to make sure you're coming to dinner tonight. She says it's important." Of course, it was important. The whole family had suddenly become very interested in my little Bitcoin website since the David Chen investment went public. At exactly 7 p.m., I pulled up to my parents' house in my new Tesla Model S. No more old apartment. I'd finally decided to start living like the billionaire I was becoming. Not that my family knew about that part yet. "Alex," my mother rushed to greet me at the door. "We were just talking about your, what do you call it, crypto thing." I stepped into the dining room to find not just my immediate family, but several surprise guests. Uncle Peter from Goldman Sachs, Cousin William from J.P. Morgan, even my father's old partner from his investment banking days. Michael sat at the center of the table, practically bouncing with barely contained excitement. "Alex, perfect timing. We were just discussing potential opportunities for collaboration." I took my seat, noting how everyone seemed to be watching me. "Were you now?" "Yes." Uncle Peter leaned forward. "Michael tells us your platform is doing quite well. We'd love to hear more about it." I bet they would. What they didn't know was that I just finished a board meeting where we'd reviewed their bank's desperate attempts to get early access to our institutional platform. Actually, I said, pulling out my phone. Why don't I show you? I projected our latest statistics onto the dining room wall using a small portable projector. The numbers spoke for themselves. Daily trading volume, $500 million. Active users, 2 million. Institutional clients waitlist, 400 plus. Platform valuation, $2.8 billion. The room went silent. That's impossible. William stuttered. Those numbers can't be right. They're actually outdated, I replied calmly. This morning's volume crossed $600 million. We're the fastest growing cryptocurrency exchange in history. Michael's face had gone pale. But you never said. You never asked, brother. Too busy telling me how cryptocurrency was a scam, remember? My father cleared his throat. Son, with numbers like these, you must be thinking about taking the company public. I have some contacts at Goldman who cooled. We don't need traditional investment banks, I cut him off. In fact, as of next week, they'll need us. I pulled up another screen. The preview of our institutional trading platform. NextGen Prime launches Monday. It's going to revolutionize how banks and hedge funds trade digital assets. We've already signed partnerships with 3 of the top 5 financial institutions in the world. Which ones? Uncle Peter demanded. I'm afraid that's confidential, but I'm sure your bank CEOs will tell you soon enough. They've been quite enthusiastic in our meetings. The atmosphere in the room shifted. Suddenly, I wasn't little Alex playing with internet money. I was Alexander Anderson, the CEO they'd been desperately trying to meet. Now, I continued, I understand several of your institutions have been trying to schedule meetings about potential partnerships. Nods around the table. Those requests go through our institutional sales team, just like everyone else's. No family shortcuts. Michael stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. We're your family. We have decades of banking experience. You need our expertise. I laughed softly. Need your expertise? Michael, your bank's entire crypto trading desk has less daily volume than what our platform processes in an hour. What exactly could you teach me about this market? But the risks, the regulations, are all being handled by the best teams money can buy. Our compliance department is headed by the former chief of cryptocurrency enforcement at the SEC. Our security team includes top experts from the NSA and Israeli intelligence. And our trading infrastructure. I smiled. Well, let's just say it makes your bank systems look like they're running on Windows 95. My mother, trying to salvage the situation, jumped in. Darling, we're all so proud of your success. We just want to be involved. To help. Like you helped when I started. When I was working 18-hour days building this from scratch. When Michael was telling everyone who would listen that my business was a scam. Silence. I have a meeting with the Central Bank of Singapore tomorrow morning, I said, standing up. They're interested in using our technology to build their national digital currency platform. So if you'll excuse me. Wait, my father called as I reached the door. What? What's the company actually worth now? With all these partnerships and developments. I turned back, making sure to meet Michael's eyes. The latest private funding round valued us at $5.2 billion. My stake is just over 70%. The sound of my brother's wine glass shattering on the floor punctuated my exit perfectly. In my car, I checked my messages. 23 missed calls from various family members' banks. 5 urgent emails from Michael's boss, and one message that made me smile. Confirmation that Morgan Stanley's CEO wanted to meet. I typed a quick response to my assistant. Schedule the meeting for next week, but make sure Michael is there. I want him to see exactly who he's been calling a fool all these years. As I drove away, I thought about how different things were from that first family dinner when I announced my Bitcoin investment. They'd laughed then, called it fake money, said I was throwing my life away. Now they were practically begging for a piece of what I'd built. But the best part? They still didn't know about our newest development. The one that would make everything we'd done so far look small in comparison. The one I was saving for our next family dinner. The meeting with Morgan Stanley's CEO was scheduled for 10 a.m. in our New York headquarters. I made sure Michael would have a front row seat to what was coming. I sat in my office, 52 floors above Manhattan, watching the morning sun glint off neighboring skyscrapers. The wall of screens behind my desk displayed real-time trading data from NextGen's platforms. Over $2 billion in trading volume already, and it wasn't even lunchtime. "They're here," Emma announced through the intercom. "Send them up. And Emma, make sure the presentation is ready." The elevator doors opened to reveal Morgan Stanley's entire executive team, led by CEO James Harrison. Michael trailed behind them, trying to look important, but clearly uncomfortable. "Alexander." Harrison stepped forward, hand extended. "Finally, we meet in person." I gestured to the conference room where the wall-to-wall windows offered a stunning view of the city. "Please, make yourselves comfortable." As they took their seats, I noticed Michael's eyes darting around, taking in every detail of our office. The state-of-the-art trading floor, visible through glass walls. The hundreds of employees bustling about. The massive screens showing our global operations. "Quite an operation you've built here," Harrison began. "Your institutional platform has certainly caught our attention." "Yes," I smiled. "I believe you've been trying to get a meeting for. How long, Michael?" My brother shifted uncomfortably. "Alex, 3 months," Harrison cut in. "Which is why we're here today. We want to discuss a potential partnership. Morgan Stanley has significant resources that could help expand your platform's reach." I leaned back in my chair. "Interesting. And what exactly do you think we need help with?" "Well," Harrison gestured to his team. "We have decades of experience in traditional finance, global infrastructure, regulatory relationships." Let me stop you there. I pressed a button, and the room's screens came to life. Let me show you something we haven't made public yet. The screens displayed a global map with pulsing lines connecting different points. This is NextGen's current network. We process more transactions per second than all major stock exchanges combined. Our security protocols are 3 generations ahead of anything in traditional banking, and our regulatory compliance systems are being studied by central banks as a model for the future. I switched to another screen. But that's not why you're really here, is it? You're here because of this. The screen showed a preview of NextGen's newest platform, introducing NextGen Bridge, the future of global finance. Harrison leaned forward, his eyes widening. Is that a fully integrated platform that bridges traditional finance with digital assets? Real-time settlement, cross-border transactions without intermediaries, complete integration with existing banking systems. I paused for effect. And we've already signed exclusive partnerships with 3 major central banks. Michael stood up so abruptly his chair nearly toppled. That's impossible. The regulatory requirements alone have all been approved. I finished for him. While you were busy calling cryptocurrency a scam, we were revolutionizing the entire financial system. Harrison's face had gone pale. The rumors about Project Phoenix, that was you. I nodded. NextGen Bridge launches next month. We're offering partnership opportunities to a select few institutions. I slid a document across the table. This is our only offer to Morgan Stanley. Harrison grabbed the paper, his hands shaking slightly as he read. His eyes stopped at one particular line. This values your company at $12 billion. I confirmed. And that's just the beginning. Michael looked like he might faint. The brother who had mocked my magic internet money was watching his bank negotiate for scraps from my empire. The terms are non-negotiable, I continued. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, we move on to the next bank on our list. But we need time to conduct due diligence, Michael sputtered. To review the technology. No, you don't. I stood up. Because every minute you spend deciding is a minute your competitors could be signing with us instead. Isn't that right, Mr. Harrison? Harrison was already pulling out his phone. I'll call an emergency board meeting for this afternoon. As the Morgan Stanley team filed out, Harrison paused at the door. Michael never mentioned his brother was building something like this. No, I smiled. He was too busy telling everyone it was a scam. After they left, I sat alone in the conference room, thinking about how far things had come from that first family dinner. My phone buzzed, a message from Sarah. Mom's planning another family dinner next week. Says it's important we all talk about recent developments. I texted back. Perfect timing. I have something to announce. What my family didn't know, what even Morgan Stanley didn't know, was that NextGen Bridge was just the beginning. The real bombshell would come at that dinner. The week passed in a blur of activity. Morgan Stanley signed our partnership agreement within 24 hours. 6 other major banks followed suit. NextGen's valuation jumped to $15 billion. The night of the family dinner arrived. This time, I had my driver take me in the Rolls-Royce. Might as well embrace it fully. The usual suspects were all there, plus a few new additions. More interested family members who had suddenly remembered my existence. Alex. My mother hugged me tightly. We've been reading all about your company in the news. Why didn't you tell us it was so successful? You never asked, Mom. Too busy worrying about my poor life choices, remember? Michael sat in the corner, nursing a drink. He'd been demoted at Morgan Stanley after the partnership negotiations. Apparently, failing to recognize a revolutionary financial technology being built by your own brother wasn't great for a banking career. My father stood up, champagne glass in hand. I'd like to propose a toast to my son, Alexander, who has proven us all wrong and built something truly remarkable. Actually, I interrupted. I have an announcement to make first. All eyes turned to me. NextGen isn't just launching a new platform. We're going public next month. I paused, letting that sink in. Initial valuation estimates put us at $30 billion. My stake will be worth approximately $21 billion. The room erupted in chaos. Glasses dropped. People started talking all at once. But more importantly, I continued, raising my voice slightly, we're establishing the NextGen Foundation, a $5 billion initiative to fund technology education and entrepreneurship programs. That's wonderful, son, my father managed. Yes, is. And here's the interesting part. It's specifically aimed at funding innovators whose families don't believe in them. People like me, who have to sell their cars to fund their dreams because their own flesh and blood won't even listen. The room fell silent. The Foundation's first program, a scholarship for young entrepreneurs. The qualification essay topic: how did your family discourage your dreams? I stood up, straightening my jacket. Oh, and one more thing. We're launching a financial literacy program teaching people about cryptocurrency and digital assets. I'm naming it after you, Michael. So everyone will remember how the great investment banker couldn't see the future of finance when it was sitting right across his dinner table. Alex, my mother started, surely you understand we were just worried about you. No, Mom. You weren't worried. You were judgmental, controlling, convinced that your way was the only way. I looked around the table. All of you were, and now you're all trying to get a piece of what I built despite you. I walked to the door, then turned back. The next-gen IPO is going to be the biggest in history, and none of you will get a single pre-sale share. Instead, I'm allocating those to young entrepreneurs who, like me, have families that don't believe in them. But we're family, Michael protested weakly. No, I replied. You're just people who share my DNA. Family supports each other. Family believes in each other. Family doesn't mock dreams or call innovation scams. I pulled out my phone and showed them one final screen. NextGen's new headquarters under construction. A 100-story tower that would dominate the city skyline. See that? I pointed to the location. It's being built right across from Morgan Stanley. Every morning, Michael, you'll look out your office window, assuming you still have an office, and see my name on the tallest building in this city. As I left, I heard the chaos erupting behind me, but I didn't look back. In my car, I opened my laptop to check the latest trading volume. $5 billion and counting. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Sarah. They deserved that. And for what it's worth, I always believed in you. I smiled. Maybe one family member got it right. The next morning, I stood in my office, watching the sun rise over the city. The headlines were already rolling in about NextGen's IPO announcement. The financial world was in a frenzy. Emma came in with my morning coffee. Your brother's been calling again. Let me guess. He wants to discuss pre-IPO shares. Actually, she smirked, he wants to know if we're hiring. Apparently, Morgan Stanley is downsizing their traditional trading desk. I laughed. Tell him to apply online, like everyone else. As I looked out at the city, I thought about that first Bitcoin purchase. The car I sold. The dreams they mocked. The future they couldn't see. Sometimes success isn't just about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. And sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't in the billions you make. It's in watching those who doubted you realize just how wrong they were. My phone buzzed again. Bitcoin had just hit a new all-time high. I smiled. The future of finance was here. And I owned it. You want to do what? My father's voice echoed through our pristine suburban kitchen, making the designer light fixtures tremble. His face, already red from his third scotch of the evening, darkened to an alarming shade of purple. I want to start a software company, I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. I've already developed a prototype. It's a platform that helps small businesses. Absolutely not. He slammed his glass down. We didn't pay for your Stanford degree so you could waste your life on some pipe dream. You're joining the family business. End of discussion. I looked at my mother, hoping for support. She sat perfectly still at our marble island. maintaining her usual careful distance from conflict. The diamond tennis bracelet I'd given her for Christmas, bought with my savings from secret freelance coding jobs, glinted on her wrist. "Mom, I tried. You've seen how many small businesses are struggling with digital transformation. My platform could really help." "Daniel," she sighed, examining her manicure, "your father's right. This tech obsession of yours, it's not practical. Norton Industries needs you. The company's been in the family for 3 generations." What they really meant was that Norton Industries, our family's industrial supply business, was failing. They needed my programming skills to modernize their outdated systems, to help them compete in a rapidly digitizing market. But I had bigger dreams. "I'm not asking for money," I said. "I have savings. I just need some time, Time?" My father barked out a laugh. "You want time to play with computers while real businesses are at stake. While your sister is already making partner at her law firm." "Ah, yes, my perfect older sister Sophia. Harvard Law, youngest partner in her firm's history, married to a surgeon. The standard against which all my failures were measured." "This isn't playing," I insisted. "I've already got interest from potential clients. Small businesses need affordable software solutions, and the big tech companies aren't serving them." My platform cooled. The glass shattered against the wall inches from my head. "Enough!" my father roared, whiskey dripping down the expensive wallpaper. "You have a choice. Join Norton Industries on Monday or get out. See how long you last without our support." My mother flinched at the noise, but said nothing. She never did. I looked at them both, my father trembling with rage, my mother avoiding my eyes, and made the decision that would change everything. "I choose out." "What?" "I'm leaving." I stood up, surprisingly calm. "Good luck modernizing Norton Industries without me." "You ungrateful." My father started toward me, but I was already heading upstairs. I had known this moment might come. My backpack was already packed with essentials: laptop, portable hard drive, 2 changes of clothes. My important documents were safely stored in a safety deposit box. Most of my savings were in an account my parents couldn't access. "You have 1 hour," my father shouted up the stairs. "Then I want you out of this house." I grabbed my emergency bag, my favorite hoodie, and took one last look at my childhood bedroom. The walls still displayed my coding competition medals, science fair awards, the framed article about the app I developed in high school that had caught Stanford's attention. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Marcus. "Operation Escape still on." "Happening now," I typed back. Plan B initiated. Marcus and I had gamed out this scenario months ago, when I first decided to pursue my startup dreams. He had a small apartment above his family's restaurant where I could crash until I got on my feet. As I headed for the door, my mother finally spoke. "Daniel, please. Be reasonable. Your father only wants what's best." "No," I cut her off. "He wants what's best for Norton Industries. There's a difference." I walked out without looking back. The first night in my car was surreal. I'd parked on a quiet street 2 blocks from my parents' house, close enough to maintain a strong connection to their high-speed Wi-Fi network, which I'd installed and secured myself, far enough that they wouldn't spot me. My laptop glowed in the darkness as I continued coding, the familiar rhythm of keystrokes drowning out the voice in my head that whispered I was making a huge mistake. "You sure about this?" Marcus asked when he brought me dinner. "Is Mother's incredible pad thai? My couch is still available." I shook my head, showing him my workspace, Laptop, mobile hotspot for backup internet, power bank for emergencies. I need to stay mobile for now. Can't risk them finding me and trying to force me back. He peered at my screen. What exactly are you building? I pulled up my prototype's interface. I call it Smart Start. It's an all-in-one digital platform for small businesses. Point of sale, inventory management, customer relationships, online presence. Everything they need to compete in today's market, but simplified and affordable. Like what your dad's company needs? Similar, but designed for smaller businesses that can't afford enterprise solutions. I thought of all the local shops I'd seen struggle and fail because they couldn't keep up with digital transformation. There's a huge market being ignored by big tech. Marcus nodded slowly. His family's restaurant still used paper order tickets and a cash register from the 1990s. How long until it's ready? Basic version? 2 months. I've got most of the core functions working. Just need to polish the interface and add some features. What I didn't tell him was that I was also secretly documenting everything wrong with Norton Industries systems. Every vulnerability, every inefficiency, every missed opportunity for digital innovation. Not out of spite, but because I knew that someday they'd need exactly what I was building. They just didn't know it yet. Life settled into a strange routine. During the day, I'd work from various coffee shops, buying the minimum necessary to justify using their space and Wi-Fi. At night, I'd park near my parents' house, using their high-speed connection to upload code and run complex tests. I lived on protein bars, coffee, and Marcus's family's leftovers. Showered at a cheap gym membership. Learned which parking lots were safe to sleep in and which to avoid. It wasn't comfortable, but it was productive. Without distractions, without my father's constant criticism, or my mother's passive disappointment, I could focus entirely on building Smart Start. 1 week in, my sister Sophia tried to intervene. "This is ridiculous, Daniel," she said when she tracked me down at my usual coffee shop. "You're living in your car to prove what? That you can be as stubborn as Dad." I didn't look up from my coding. "I'm building something important. You're throwing away a guaranteed future with the family business." "The family business is dying," I said bluntly. "Dad's too proud to admit it. But their systems are ancient, their processes are inefficient, and their competitors are eating them alive. Then help fix it." I finally met her eyes. "That's exactly what I'm doing, just not the way they want." She left in frustration, but not before leaving a thick envelope on my table. Inside was $5,000 in cash with a note. "Don't be an idiot. Come home." I used the money to buy a better laptop and upgrade my development tools. The breakthrough came in month 2. I'd been approached by several small businesses interested in beta testing Smart Start. A local bookstore, a family-owned hardware store, a growing food truck business. All struggling with exactly the problems my platform was designed to solve. "This is exactly what we need," the bookstore owner said after I demonstrated the inventory management system. "QuickBooks is too complicated, and the custom solutions are too expensive. How much would this cost?" I quoted a price that made her eyes light up, deliberately lower than market rate, designed to build word of mouth. By month 3, I had paying customers. Small amounts, but steady income. Enough to rent a tiny studio apartment, though I kept it off the lease to stay under my parents' radar. Then came the call that changed everything. "Is this Daniel Norton?" The voice was professional, authoritative. "Yes. This is Charles Widener from Tech Fund Ventures. We've been hearing interesting things about your Smart Start platform. My heart stopped. Tech Fund Ventures was one of the most prestigious early-stage investors in the country. One of our portfolio companies mentioned your solution. Said it's exactly what the small business market needs. Would you be interested in discussing potential investment? I gripped my phone tighter, thinking of all the nights coding in my car, all the meals skipped to buy server time, all the doubts and fears pushed aside to pursue this dream. Yes, I said, I would definitely be interested. What I didn't know then was that this conversation would set in motion a chain of events that would not only validate my vision, but also bring me face to face with my family's business failures in a way none of us could have predicted. The Tech Fund Ventures office occupied the top floor of a gleaming downtown skyscraper, exactly the kind of place my father would approve of. I adjusted my one good suit, bought secondhand for investor meetings, and tried not to look like someone who'd been living in his car 2 months ago. Charles Wadner was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with the relaxed confidence of someone who'd made his fortune in the first dot-com boom. Walk me through it again, he said, gesturing to the conference room's massive display where my Smart Start demo was running. I pulled up the interface that had become as familiar as my own reflection. Small businesses are drowning in digital complexity. They need e-commerce, inventory management, customer relationship tools, but existing solutions are either too expensive, too complicated, or too limited. I demonstrated how a small business owner could set up their entire digital presence in under an hour. Point of sale, inventory tracking, customer communications, even basic analytics, all integrated, all simple enough for anyone to use. And this scales? Charles asked. Completely. The architecture is cloud-based, modular. We can add features as businesses grow, integrate with other platforms, but the core stays simple. He nodded slowly. And your current users? 28 paying customers, all from word of mouth. 0 churn rate. Average user engagement is 4 hours daily. That's impressive. He pulled up another screen. My company's incorporation documents. Innovative Solutions LLC. Registered 6 months ago. Yes, all self-funded so far. He studied me carefully. You're Jonathan Norton's son. My heart skipped. You know my father? Norton Industries was one of my first investments, back in the day, before your father bought out the minority shareholders. His expression turned thoughtful. They're having trouble adapting to digital markets, I hear. I kept my face neutral. I wouldn't know. I'm not involved with Norton Industries. Interesting. He tapped his tablet, and a new document appeared on the screen. We'd like to offer you seed funding. $2 million for a 20% stake. I tried not to show how my hands were shaking. $2 million. More money than I'd ever imagined having access to. There's one condition, Charles continued. We want you to expand your focus. Small businesses are good, but mid-sized enterprises need these solutions too. Companies like, say, Norton Industries. And there it was. The trap I'd been both expecting and dreading. You want me to target my family's business. He smiled slightly. I want you to target a market segment that desperately needs modernization. The fact that your father's company might benefit is incidental. I thought about all the nights I'd spent parked outside my parents' house, using their Wi-Fi to build something they'd dismissed. About my father's rage and my mother's silence. About the small businesses already thriving with Smart Start. I'll need full control of the company's direction, I said. No interference with the core mission. Of course. He slid a folder across the table. Have your lawyers review it. But Daniel, don't wait too long. This market won't stay open forever. I signed the deal 3 days later, after my sister Safia, still a better lawyer than she knew, reviewed every clause. "You're really doing this," she said, handing back the marked-up documents. "Going directly against Dad's business. I'm building something that could save his business," I corrected, "if he's willing to see it." She shook her head. "You know he won't. Not coming from you." She was right, of course, but I had a plan for that too. The next 6 months were a blur of scaling up. I rented real office space, a converted warehouse that would have given my mother a heart attack. Hired developers, designers, sales staff. Marcus came on as head of customer success, his experience with small business owners proving invaluable. Smart Start grew faster than even Charles had predicted. Word spread through business communities about the platform that actually delivered on its promises. Our user base exploded from dozens to hundreds, then thousands. Then came the article that changed everything. Digital David versus Goliath. How Smart Start is disrupting enterprise software. The tech press had finally noticed us. The article praised our innovation, our focus on user experience, our ability to help small businesses compete with larger corporations. It also mentioned, almost as an aside, that I was the estranged son of Jonathan Norton. My phone rang minutes after the article went live. "Sophia. Dad's furious," she said without preamble. "He's calling an emergency board meeting." "Why?" "Smart Start isn't competing with Norton Industries." "No, but 3 of their biggest customers just announced they're switching to your platform." I sat back, stunned. We'd been so focused on small businesses, I hadn't noticed the mid-sized companies starting to adopt Smart Start. "There's more," Safia continued. "Their latest quarterly numbers. They're bad, Daniel. Really bad. The board is talking about forcing Dad out if he doesn't modernize their systems." I pulled up Norton Industries' public financial reports. The numbers were worse than I'd imagined. Their stock had dropped 40% in 6 months. Customer churn was accelerating. Their ancient software systems were literally driving them toward bankruptcy. "They need help," I said quietly. "They need you," she corrected. "But you know Dad will never admit it." I thought about Charles Wagner's words about targeting mid-sized enterprises, about all the features we'd built into Smart Start that could save companies exactly like Norton Industries. "Maybe," I said slowly, "they don't need to know it's me." That night, I called an emergency meeting of my own team. "We're launching enterprise solutions," I announced, pulling up the prototype I'd been quietly developing. A new division focused on larger businesses, built on the Smart Start framework, but with additional features for complex operations. Marcus frowned. "I thought we were staying focused on small business." "We are. But there's a whole segment of mid-sized companies being crushed between small business agility and big corporation resources. They need what we've built." I didn't mention that every feature in Enterprise Solutions had been designed specifically to solve Norton Industries' problems, that I'd spent months analyzing their weaknesses, building solutions for issues they didn't even know they had yet. The team worked around the clock for weeks. We launched Enterprise Solutions under a new brand, through a subsidiary company that couldn't be easily traced back to me. The marketing targeted companies exactly like Norton Industries, established businesses struggling with digital transformation. Then we waited. It didn't take long. Norton Industries' new chief technology officer, hired in desperation after their last system crash, reached out within days of our launch. The meeting was set for their headquarters. I watched via secure video feed as our sales team, carefully chosen to have no connection to me, presented enterprise solutions to my father and his board. I saw the moment he realized this was exactly what they needed. Saw him fight against admitting it. Saw the board members' eager questions about implementation and pricing. The investment would be significant, our sales lead explained, but the potential return. We'll need to see other options, my father interrupted. Jonathan, an older board member, leaned forward. We've seen 12 presentations in 2 months. This is the only solution that actually addresses our specific needs. And their track record. Impressive results with similar companies. Another board member chimed in. My cousin's manufacturing business switched to their system last quarter. Saw immediate improvements. I watched my father's face as he realized he was losing this fight. The board wanted change. Their customers demanded it. Enterprise Solutions was their best chance at survival. Fine, he growled. Start the procurement process. I closed the video feed, feeling strangely hollow. I'd done it. Created exactly what Norton Industries needed. Proved my vision was right. So why didn't it feel like victory? The answer came 3 days later when Sophia called again. Dad's drinking, she said without preamble. Really drinking. Mom's talking about separation. My stomach clenched. Because of Enterprise Solutions? Because he knows he failed. The company's falling apart, and he had to go begging to outsiders for help. She paused. He keeps saying he should have listened to you. I stared out my office window at the city skyline, thinking of all the choices that had led us here. My father's stubbornness, my own pride, the walls of silence we'd built between us. What if? I said slowly. There was a way to save both the company and his pride. How? I have an idea, but I'll need your help. The Norton Industries board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Thursday. I sat in my car outside their headquarters, the same spot where I'd once parked to use their Wi-Fi, watching familiar faces file into the building. My father arrived last, looking older than I remembered. His normally immaculate suit was slightly rumpled, his walk less confident than the stride I'd grown up admiring. Everything ready? I asked into my phone. All set, Sophia confirmed. The board members are prepped. Charles Wagner just arrived. And Mom, in position, though she's still not sure about this. I adjusted my tie, designer now, but still not the brand my father would choose. It has to be today. The Enterprise Solutions contract needs board approval by end of week. Good luck, Sophia said softly. Try not to enjoy this too much. I smiled despite my nerves. She knew me too well. The security guard did a double take as I walked in. Last time I'd been here, I'd been escorted out after another fight about joining the family business. Now I was back on my own terms. The boardroom fell silent as I entered. My father's face went from surprised to angry to confused in rapid succession. Charles Wagner, sitting near the head of the table, merely nodded as if he'd been expecting me. What are you doing here? My father demanded. I'm here to discuss the Enterprise Solutions contract, I said calmly, placing my laptop on the table. This is a closed board meeting. Security. Actually, Charles interrupted smoothly. Mr. Norton is here at my request. As the majority investor in Enterprise Solutions, I believe his input is crucial to this discussion. My father's face went pale. You? What? I connected my laptop to the display screen, pulling up a familiar interface, but not Enterprise Solutions. Instead, I showed them the original Smart Start dashboard, complete with my earliest notes and sketches. I started building this the day you kicked me out, I explained. Using your Wi-Fi, actually, since I was living in my car at the time. The board members shifted uncomfortably. My mother, sitting quietly in her usual corner seat, finally looked directly at me. Smart Start grew faster than anyone expected. I continued. Small businesses loved it because it solved real problems simply and affordably. But I knew larger companies needed similar solutions. I switched to the Enterprise Solutions interface. Every feature in this system was designed specifically to address Norton Industries' challenges: the inventory management, the customer tracking, the integration capabilities, all built based on intimate knowledge of what this company needs. "You've been spying on us?" My father's voice shook with rage. "No, I've been trying to save your company. The same company you wanted me to join, but only on your terms." Charles Wagner cleared his throat. "The board has reviewed Mr. Morton's proposal. Enterprise Solutions isn't just a software platform, it's a potential merger opportunity." My father's head snapped up. Merger? I pulled up new slides, the detailed merger proposal I'd spent weeks preparing. Smart Start Technology would acquire a controlling interest in Norton Industries, I explained. But the Norton name stays. The legacy business continues, enhanced by modern technology. And the current CEO transitions to Chairman Emeritus, focusing on strategic partnerships rather than day-to-day operations. The room was absolutely silent. "You want to buy my company?" my father whispered. "I want to save it," I corrected. "Transform it into something that honors its history while embracing the future. But it has to happen now, before the market completely passes you by." My mother spoke for the first time. "Jonathan, listen to him." He turned to her, startled. In 30 years of board meetings, she'd never spoken up. "I've seen what Daniel built," she continued. "What he sacrificed to build it. This isn't about winning or losing. It's about family." "Family?" He barked out a laugh. He abandoned the family business. "No," I said quietly. "I found a different way to support it. Every feature, every innovation in Enterprise Solutions was designed with Norton Industries in mind. Because despite everything, I never stopped believing in what this company could be." I walked over to his chair, pulled up one more document on my tablet. My original business plan, written in my car that first night after being kicked out. The title read, "Project Phoenix, Modernizing Norton Industries Through Independent Innovation." He stared at the document, recognition dawning. "This was your plan all along." "Plan B, actually. Plan A was convincing you to modernize from within. But you weren't ready to listen then." Charles Wagner stood up. "The board needs to vote on this merger proposal by end of day. I suggest we take a brief recess to process this information." People filed out, leaving me alone with my father. He sat there, staring at my business plan, looking lost. "Why didn't you tell me?" he finally asked. "Would you have listened? Really listened, not just heard what you wanted to hear." He was quiet for a long moment. "You built all this, using our Wi-Fi?" I couldn't help but laugh. "That's what you're focusing on?" "No, He ran a hand through his gray hair. "I'm trying to understand how my son went from living in his car to offering to buy my company in less than 2 years. The same way you built this company. By seeing an opportunity everyone else missed. By working harder than anyone thought possible. By believing in something bigger than myself." He nodded slowly. "Your grandfather would have loved this, you know. He always said the best business lessons come from proving the skeptics wrong. I learned that from you, actually. All those stories about how you built Norton Industries, how you proved everyone wrong who said it would fail. I sat down next to him. I just did it my way, instead of yours. The board voted unanimously to approve the merger. My father, after the longest pause of my life, voted yes. The transition wasn't smooth. Change never is, especially in family businesses. But slowly, surely, Norton Industries began to transform. We kept the name, but modernized the brand, kept the core business my grandfather had built, but enhanced it with technology that helped it thrive in the digital age. SmartStart's innovation combined with Norton's stability created something neither company could have achieved alone. 1 year later, I sat in what had been my father's office, our office now, since he'd finally accepted the chairman emeritus role. We were reviewing quarterly numbers, which had exceeded all projections. "You were right," he said suddenly. I looked up. About what? About everything. The technology, the market changes, the need to adapt. He met my eyes. I was too proud to see it, too scared of losing control. "And now," he gestured at the tablet, showing our latest results. "Now I'm proud of what you built, what we're building together." My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus about a potential new acquisition target. Another struggling family business that needed exactly what we created. "Speaking of building," I said, pulling up the proposal, "what do you think about expanding our enterprise division?" He smiled, the real smile I remembered from childhood, before stress and fear had hardened him. "Tell me more." Later that night, I drove past our old house. The Wi-Fi signal was still strong. I'd upgraded their system last month, though they didn't know it. I thought about that first night in my car, coding by the glow of my laptop, running on determination and spite and dreams of proving everyone wrong. But success, I'd learned, wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving yourself right, about building something so undeniable that even the strongest skeptics have to acknowledge its value. My phone buzzed again, a family dinner reminder from my mother. These were regular events now, though the conversation had shifted from criticism to collaboration, from judgment to genuine interest. "Coming," I texted back. Then, because I couldn't resist, using the Wi-Fi to send this. Her response came quickly. "Very funny. Your father says bring the new acquisition proposal. And yes, he's actually smiling about it." I smiled too, thinking of how far we'd come. From rejection to reunion, from competition to collaboration, from using their Wi-Fi in secret to helping them embrace the digital future. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving someone wrong. It's helping them become right in a whole new way. The day my grandmother, Catherine Hamilton, died, I was elbow-deep in soil, tending to her prized rose garden. She had taught me everything about those roses, which varieties needed more sun, how to prune them just right, and most importantly, how to nurture their roots so they'd flourish for generations. "These roses are like secrets, Sarah," she'd often say, her blue eyes twinkling with hidden knowledge. "Some bloom bright and bold, while others hide their beauty until the perfect moment." I didn't understand what she meant then, but I would soon enough. The call came from Mr. Patterson, her attorney, his voice carrying the weight of decades managing the Hamilton family's legal affairs. "Miss Hamilton, I'm afraid I have difficult news. Your grandmother passed away in her sleep last night." The rose clippers slipped from my hands, landing silently in the soft earth. My grandmother, the woman who had raised me after my parents' death, who had been more of a mother to me than anyone else, was gone. "There's something else," Patterson continued, his voice dropping slightly. "She left explicit instructions about her will. The reading is scheduled for tomorrow at 2 p.m. Your presence is mandatory." I barely registered his words, my mind still struggling to process the loss. "Of course, I'll be there. One more thing, Miss Hamilton. Your grandmother insisted that all family members must attend, including your Uncle Marcus." My hand tightened around the phone. Uncle Marcus, my father's younger brother, and the current CEO of Hamilton Industries. The man who had spent years trying to convince grandmother to sell her controlling shares in the company. The man whose very presence made the air feel thick with tension at every family gathering. "I understand," I replied, though I didn't. Not really. The next day, I arrived at Patterson and Associates, the law firm that had handled Hamilton family matters since before I was born. The office occupied the entire top floor of a historic downtown building, its dark wood panels and leather-bound books speaking of old money and even older secrets. Uncle Marcus was already there, impeccable in his tailored suit, his silver hair perfectly styled. Aunt Diana, his wife, sat beside him, her face a mask of practiced sympathy. Their children, my cousins William and Victoria, completed the picture of the perfect grieving family. I took a seat across from them, suddenly conscious of my simple black dress and the dirt still lingering beneath my fingernails from yesterday's gardening. Uncle Marcus's eyes flickered over me, his lip curling slightly. "Sarah," he nodded curtly. "I trust you're well." Before I could respond, Mr. Patterson entered, carrying a thick manila envelope. He settled behind his massive desk, adjusting his reading glasses with practiced precision. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice grave. "We're here to discuss Catherine Hamilton's last will and testament. But before we proceed, she left specific instructions about how this meeting should be conducted." He opened the envelope, pulling out several documents. "First, I must confirm that all named parties are present." "Marcus Hamilton?" "Present," my uncle answered, his deep voice filling the room. "Diana Hamilton?" "Here," Aunt Diana whispered. "William and Victoria Hamilton." My cousins murmured their acknowledgments. "And Sarah Hamilton?" "Present," I said softly. Patterson nodded, satisfied. "Very well. Mrs. Hamilton's will is unusual. She has divided her estate into 2 parts. Uncle Marcus leaned forward slightly, his fingers drumming against his armrest. "The first part concerns Hamilton Industries. As you know, Catherine held controlling interest in the company, 51% of all voting shares." Patterson paused, glancing at each of us in turn. "These shares, along with her other business holdings, will be held in trust for 30 days. "Held in trust?" Marcus interrupted, his voice sharp. "For what purpose?" Patterson raised a hand. "Please let me finish. After 30 days, the shares and business holdings, valued at approximately $50 million, will be transferred to Sarah Hamilton." The room erupted in chaos. Uncle Marcus shot to his feet, his face flushed with anger. "This is absurd. Sarah has no business experience, no understanding of the company. She spends her days playing in the dirt." Victoria let out a small, shocked laugh. William just stared at me, his expression unreadable. I sat there, frozen. $50 million. Control of Hamilton Industries. It felt surreal, like a dream I couldn't quite grasp. But Patterson wasn't finished. He pulled out another envelope, this one sealed with dark red wax, bearing my grandmother's personal seal. "However," he continued, silencing the room, "there is one condition." All eyes turned to him as he held up the sealed envelope. This contains information that Mrs. Hamilton insisted must be revealed at the upcoming Hamilton family reunion, scheduled for exactly 30 days from today. If the information is not disclosed as specified, the entire inheritance will be donated to charity. Uncle Marcus's face had gone from red to white. What information? Patterson shook his head. I don't know. The envelope is sealed and addressed only to Sarah. He extended the envelope toward me. As I reached for it, I noticed something strange. Uncle Marcus's hands were trembling. This is ridiculous, he sputtered. You can't possibly expect us to wait 30 days while some gardener holds the company's fate in her hands. I took the envelope, feeling its weight, not just in physical terms, but in the way it seemed to carry the weight of secrets spanning decades. Those are Mrs. Hamilton's terms, Patterson said firmly. The family reunion will be held at Hamilton Manor, as tradition dictates. Sarah must attend and reveal the contents of this envelope. Only then will the inheritance be officially transferred. As I left the law office that day, the sealed envelope secure in my bag, I caught Uncle Marcus watching me with an expression I'd never seen before. It wasn't just anger or frustration, it was fear. Walking to my car, I ran my fingers over the envelope's wax seal. What secret could be so important that my grandmother would stake $50 million on its revelation? And why did Uncle Marcus look so terrified? I didn't know then that the answer would shake the Hamilton family to its core, or that the next 30 days would change everything I thought I knew about my family's legacy. That night, I sat in my small apartment above the local flower shop I managed, staring at the envelope. The wax seal gleamed in the lamplight, almost daring me to break it. But something held me back. Perhaps the same instinct my grandmother had taught me about timing when tending to her roses. Some secrets, her voice echoed in my memory, are like the rarest blooms. They must be revealed at exactly the right moment. I placed the envelope in my safe, beside the only photo I had of my parents. Tomorrow, I would begin preparing for the family reunion, and whatever shocking truth lay sealed within that mysterious envelope. Little did I know, Uncle Marcus was already making plans of his own. Plans that would force me to decide between wealth and truth, between family loyalty and justice. The game was about to begin, and the stakes were higher than I could have imagined. As I finally drifted off to sleep that night, my grandmother's words echoed once more in my mind. Remember, Sarah, every rose has its thorns, but it's the thorns that protect the most beautiful blooms. I was about to discover just how sharp those thorns could be. The morning after the will reading, I woke to 3 missed calls from Uncle Marcus and a text message that made my blood run cold. We need to talk. Now, I sat in my small kitchen, watching steam rise from my coffee cup while considering my options. The sealed envelope lay before me, its red wax seal catching the morning light. Something about it felt heavy, like it carried more than just paper inside. My phone buzzed again. Uncle Marcus. This time, I answered. Sarah. His voice was controlled, measured, the same tone he used during difficult board meetings. I'm outside your shop. I moved to window. Sure enough, his black Mercedes was parked in front of my modest flower shop, looking completely out of place among the local businesses. Come up, I said, knowing this confrontation was inevitable. Minutes later, Uncle Marcus stepped into my apartment, his expensive suit a stark contrast to my simple living space. His eyes darted around, taking in the potted plants, the gardening books, the framed pressed flowers on the walls. Charming, he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. Your grandmother certainly taught you well about plants. I gestured to a chair. What do you want, Uncle Marcus? He sat down, adjusting his gold cufflinks, a nervous habit I'd noticed over the years. Let's be practical about this, Sarah. You're not equipped to run Hamilton Industries. The company employs thousands of people. Our decisions affect lives, markets, entire industries. And you think I can't handle that responsibility? This isn't about capability. It's about experience, knowledge, connections. He leaned forward. I've spent 30 years building this company. Your father, my brother, would have wanted. Don't. My voice was sharp. Don't talk about what my father would have wanted. A flash of something, guilt, fear, crossed his face. Fine, he said, reaching into his jacket. Let's talk numbers instead. He pulled out a checkbook. $20 million. Cash. You sign over grandmother's shares to me, and you never have to work another day in your life. I stared at him. And the envelope? Destroy it. Whatever's inside. Some things are better left in the past. The way his hand trembled slightly as he held the checkbook told me everything I needed to know. He was terrified of what was in that envelope. No deal, I said quietly. His facade cracked. You don't understand what you're doing. That envelope. There are things you don't know about this family. About your father. Then maybe it's time I learned them. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Think carefully about your next move, Sarah. Not everyone in this family will be as generous as I'm being. After he left, I sat there for a long time, thinking about his words. What didn't I know about my father? About this family? I needed answers, and I knew exactly where to start looking. That afternoon, I drove to Hamilton Manor, my grandmother's estate, and the heart of our family's legacy. The housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, who had served our family for over 40 years, greeted me with knowing eyes. I wondered when you'd come, she said, leading me inside. Your grandmother left something for you in the library. The library was exactly as I remembered. Walls of leather-bound books, the scent of old paper and wood polish, and my grandmother's antique desk dominating the room. Mrs. Chen walked to a painting behind the desk, a landscape of the manor grounds, and carefully removed it from the wall. Behind it was a safe. She changed the combination last month, Mrs. Chen said. To your birthday. Inside the safe, I found a leather journal and a USB drive. The journal's first page bore my grandmother's elegant handwriting. My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, then you've already received the envelope. What it contains will change everything. But before you open it, you need to understand why. This journal contains the truth about the night your parents died, about your uncle's rise to power, and about the real reason I've chosen you to inherit everything. Be careful who you trust. The walls of Hamilton Manor have ears, and not everyone in this family deserves the name they carry. All my love, Grandmother Catherine. My hands trembled as I turned the page. What I read next made my heart stop. According to the journal, the car accident that killed my parents 20 years ago might not have been an accident at all. My grandmother had been investigating it for years, gathering evidence, following leads that the police had overlooked or been paid to ignore. The USB drive contained financial records, emails, and surveillance footage, a digital trail that pointed to a horrifying conclusion. Someone had tampered with my father's car the night he and my mother died. Someone who stood to gain from their deaths. Someone who took control of Hamilton Industries immediately after. Someone like Uncle Marcus. But before I could read more, I heard footsteps in the hallway. I quickly tucked the journal and USB drive into my bag just as Victoria, my cousin, entered the library. "I thought I saw your car outside," she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Finding anything interesting?" "Just memories," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. Victoria walked to the desk, running her fingers along its polished surface. "You know, Dad's really upset about all this. He built this company from nothing after Uncle James died. It's not fair that you just swoop in and take everything." I bit back a laugh. Built from nothing. Hamilton Industries had been thriving when my father ran it. It was only after his death that Uncle Marcus took control. "Your father will survive," I said, standing to leave. "Maybe." Victoria's voice turned cold. "But will you?" I stopped at the door. "Is that a threat, cousin?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Of course not. Just be careful, Sarah. Accidents happen in this family. Just ask your parents." I left Hamilton Manor with my heart pounding and my mind reeling. The journal in my bag felt like it weighed a ton, its secrets burning to be revealed. That night, I sat in my apartment reading every page of my grandmother's journal. The story it told was worse than I could have imagined. Corporate espionage, betrayal, murder, all hidden behind the respectable facade of the Hamilton name. But the most shocking revelation wasn't about my parents' death. It was about what happened after. About a series of decisions and deals that had turned Hamilton Industries from a respected family company into something darker. And Uncle Marcus was at the center of it all. As I read, pieces started falling into place. The frequent late-night meetings at the manor, the mysterious overseas accounts, the sudden resignations of board members who asked too many questions. It all pointed to a pattern of corruption that went beyond simple corporate greed. My grandmother had discovered it all, documented everything, but instead of exposing it immediately, she had waited, gathering more evidence, building an ironclad case. She knew that against someone like Uncle Marcus, you only got one chance. The family reunion was in 3 weeks. According to tradition, every member of the Hamilton family would be there, including board members, shareholders, and the press. The perfect audience for the truth to finally come out. But as I sat there surrounded by evidence of decades of deception, I realized something that chilled me to the bone. I wasn't the first person to discover these secrets. My father had known too. That's why he died. A knock at my door made me jump. It was past midnight. Who could be here at this hour? Through the peephole, I saw William, my other cousin, looking anxious. I opened the door cautiously. "William? What are you doing here?" He pushed past me into the apartment, his usual composed demeanor nowhere to be seen. "Sarah, you need to be careful. Dad, he's not himself. I overheard him talking to some men I've never seen before. They mentioned your name, and he swallowed hard. They talked about making problems go away. Why are you telling me this?" William ran a hand through his hair. "Because I found something in Dad's study. Documents about Uncle James, your father, about the night he died." He pulled out a folded paper from his jacket. "This is a copy of a payment made the day before the accident, to someone with expertise in car mechanics." I took the paper with trembling hands. The amount was substantial, the recipient's name unfamiliar. I always knew something wasn't right about that night. William continued. "But I never had proof until now." "Why show me this? He's your father." William's face hardened. "Because he's not the man I thought he was. And because He hesitated, because Uncle James was good to me. He didn't deserve what happened to him. After William left, I added his document to my grandmother's evidence. The picture it painted was becoming clearer and more dangerous by the minute. I needed to be careful. Uncle Marcus wouldn't stop at threats. He'd already proven how far he'd go to protect his secrets. The family reunion was approaching, and with it, the moment when all these secrets would finally come to light. But first, I had to survive the next 3 weeks. Little did I know, Uncle Marcus was already setting his plan in motion. A plan that would force me to choose between justice and survival, between exposing the truth and protecting what little family I had left. The game was no longer just about an inheritance. It was about justice, revenge, and the true meaning of family. And somewhere in Hamilton Manor, the clock was ticking down to a revelation that would shatter the Hamilton name forever. The day of the Hamilton family reunion arrived with an unusual chill for early summer. As I drove up the winding path to Hamilton Manor, my grandmother's sealed envelope sat heavy in my designer handbag, a rare, expensive purchase I'd made for today's occasion. Inside my jacket pocket, a small USB drive contained copies of every document, every piece of evidence I'd gathered over the past month. I'd learned from my father's mistakes. If anything happened to me, multiple copies of everything would be sent to the press, the police, and the SEC. The manor's grand facade loomed before me, its windows gleaming in the morning sun. Cars already lined the circular driveway, sleek luxury vehicles belonging to board members, shareholders, and family members who only appeared at events like these. Mrs. Chen met me at the door, her eyes conveying silent support. "They're all in the main hall," she whispered. "Your uncle has been asking about you." I nodded, straightening my spine. The past 3 weeks had been a careful dance of avoiding Uncle Marcus's increasingly aggressive attempts to resolve the situation. First came the threats disguised as warnings, then the suspicious car that followed me for days, and finally, the break-in at my apartment that was made to look like a robbery. But they hadn't found what they were looking for. The evidence remained safe, distributed across multiple locations, waiting for this moment. The main hall buzzed with conversation as I entered. Heads turned, whispers followed. Everyone knew about the inheritance, about the mysterious condition, about the tension tearing apart the Hamilton family. Uncle Marcus stood near the fireplace, holding court with several board members. His smile faltered when he saw me, his hand tightening around his crystal whiskey glass. Victoria approached first, her designer dress rustling as she moved. "Glad you could make it, cousin. Though you really should have had your hair done professionally for such an important occasion." I touched my simple updo, the same style my mother used to wear. Some things are better kept simple. "Speaking of simple," she lowered her voice, "Dad has another offer for you. 10 million more than before. Last chance." I met her gaze steadily. "Tell him I'm not interested." She shrugged, the gesture too casual to be genuine. "Your funeral." As she walked away, William caught my eye from across the room. He gave me a slight nod, our agreed-upon signal that everything was in place. Over the past weeks, he'd become an unexpected ally, helping me gather additional evidence while maintaining his cover as the dutiful son. The grandfather clock struck noon, its deep chimes silencing the room. According to tradition, this was when the family photograph would be taken, followed by lunch, and then the annual family meeting where company matters were discussed. Uncle Marcus cleared his throat. "Everyone, please gather around. The photographer is ready." As people arranged themselves by the grand staircase, I took my position near the edge of the group. Through the camera's lens, We'd look like the perfect family. Wealthy, successful, united. If only they knew what was about to happen. After the photos, we moved to the dining room. Crystal glasses clinked, silver cutlery gleamed, and conversation flowed as smoothly as the expensive wine. I barely touched my food, watching as Uncle Marcus grew increasingly tense with each passing minute. Finally, it was time for the family meeting. Board members, shareholders, and family members filed into the Manor's wood-paneled conference room. Journalists from select financial publications, invited to cover Hamilton Industries' latest announcements, sat in the back, notepads ready. Uncle Marcus took his place at the head of the table, exactly where my father used to sit. "Before we begin discussing company matters," he said, his voice carrying across the room, "I believe my niece has something she'd like to share with us." All eyes turned to me. This was the moment my grandmother had planned for, the moment 20 years in the making. I stood slowly, removing the sealed envelope from my bag. The red wax seal caught the light, drawing every gaze in the room. "As you all know," I began, my voice steady despite my pounding heart, "my grandmother left me her controlling shares in Hamilton Industries on one condition: that I reveal the contents of this envelope today, before all of you." Uncle Marcus's knuckles were white as he gripped the arms of his chair. I broke the seal carefully, pulling out several photographs and documents. The first photo showed my father in his office, looking concerned as he examined some papers. The timestamp showed it was taken the day before his death. 20 years ago, I continued. My parents died in what we were told was a tragic accident. But my grandmother never believed it was an accident. She spent years investigating, gathering evidence, following leads that others had overlooked or been paid to ignore. Murmurs rippled through the room. I placed the first document on the table, a copy of a bank transfer. This payment was made to a mechanic the day before my parents' death. A mechanic who specialized in brake systems. The same mechanic was found dead from an apparent suicide 2 weeks later. Uncle Marcus stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. You can't possibly." "I'm not finished." My voice cut through his protest like a knife. The same day this payment was made, someone accessed my father's office after hours. The security footage, which was supposedly lost, shows exactly who it was. I nodded to William, who connected his laptop to the room's projection system. The grainy footage played, showing Uncle Marcus entering my father's office late at night, removing documents from the safe. The next morning, I continued as the footage played. My father confronted Uncle Marcus about what he'd found. Evidence of embezzlement, offshore accounts, deals with shell companies that existed only on paper. Hours later, my parents were dead. The room had gone completely silent. Even the journalists had stopped writing, their pens frozen mid-sentence. But that was just the beginning. I laid out more documents, bank statements, emails, surveillance photos. Over the next 20 years, Hamilton Industries under Marcus Hamilton's leadership became a front for money laundering, tax evasion, and corporate fraud on a massive scale. Victoria jumped to her feet. "You're lying. This is all fabricated." "Every document has been verified," I cut in. "Every transaction traced. Every witness statement recorded." My grandmother spent years building this case, making sure it was ironclad before she died. I turned to the journalists. "You'll each find a complete digital copy of all evidence in your email inboxes. The SEC, FBI, and Department of Justice received their copies an hour ago." The room erupted in chaos. Board members shouted questions, Shareholders reached for their phones. Family members stared in shock or anger, or both. Through it all, Uncle Marcus remained eerily still, his face drained of color. Then slowly, he began to laugh. A hollow, broken sound that silenced the room. "You're just like him," he said, staring at me with something between hatred and admiration. "James always thought he could fix everything, make everything right. Look where it got him." "No," I replied calmly. "I'm not like my father. I'm like my grandmother. I waited. I planned. I made sure you couldn't stop the truth from coming out." As if on cue, the conference room doors opened. Federal agents streamed in, led by a stern-faced woman who held up her badge. "Marcus Hamilton," she announced. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, money laundering, and the murders of James and Eleanor Hamilton." I watched as they led him away in handcuffs, Victoria's screams, and William's quiet resignation fading into background noise. Outside, camera flashes exploded as journalists captured the moment the mighty Marcus Hamilton was brought low. Hours later, after the agents had gone, after the journalists had filed their stories, after shell-shocked family members had driven away in their luxury cars, I stood alone in my grandmother's rose garden. The roses were in full bloom, their petals catching the last rays of sunlight. I knelt down, touching one gently, remembering all the lessons my grandmother had taught me here. "You are right," I whispered to her memory. "Some secrets do need perfect timing to bloom." Mrs. Chen found me there as darkness fell. "Your grandmother would be proud," she said softly. "Both of your parents would be." I nodded, standing up and brushing dirt from my knees. "What happens now?" She smiled. "Now you do what your father always wanted. Run the company the right way. Your way." The next morning, as I sat in what had once been my father's office, now mine, I looked out over the city. Hamilton Industries would survive this scandal, emerge stronger, cleaner. The roses in my grandmother's garden would continue to bloom, their beauty no longer hiding thorny secrets. I opened my father's old desk drawer and found a small framed photo I'd never seen before. My father holding me as a baby, my mother laughing beside him, and my grandmother watching us all with knowing eyes. The same eyes that had seen through Uncle Marcus's facade, that had planned for justice even beyond her death. On my desk, next to my laptop, sat a single rose from the garden, a reminder that truth, like the rarest blooms, requires patience, care, and perfect timing to flourish. The Hamilton family would never be the same, but maybe that was exactly what it needed.